Hi, I'm Josh Ingram, music leader and worship leader in the contemporary service and the porch service. And I have a story to tell you today about God's impact on my life. It starts August 1st, 1997, when I woke up in Harris Methodist Hospital in downtown Fort Worth to find out that I had been in a terrible car accident and I was hurt very badly. The car that I was driving didn't have an airbag, so my face hit the steering wheel, broke my jaw in several places, split my upper palate, fractured my eye socket. I broke an elbow. I cut my knees to the bone. I had burns all over me because in the accident, my car caught fire. I was very lucky to have survived the accident itself anyway, but the occurrences after that were also very coincidentally favorable to me, and so that's what I want to tell you about. The first thing that happened is once my car came to a rest at the side of the road, 3 bystanders came to get me out of it. I wasn't getting out of it. They said I was in shock. And so they had to bend down the door frame and cut my seatbelt off of me, all while the car was on fire, to drag me out and get me to the ground. One of them was a state trooper, one of them was an off-duty firefighter, and the other was a truck driver who they didn't know and didn't say anything. They just said that he stopped his rig, got out with a blanket and a knife, and the blanket they used to wrap around the window frame so they could bend it and pull it out of the way, and that the knife they used to cut my seatbelt off. And once they got me out on the ground, he got in his truck and drove on without really saying anything to anybody to identify himself or anything. That obviously is one of the many reasons that I'm still alive to tell you this story, are those 3 men risking their lives. Once they took me to the emergency room in Glenrose, unbeknownst to me, they were overstaffed. For whatever reason, they had more nurses on call and more nurses in the ER than they typically would have. Once I went back to visit the emergency room a year later to thank them for saving my life, the doctor told me that he didn't know why, but they had a bunch of extra staff members there, more than they would normally have, and that it took every single one of them to work on me and work on another one of the victims from the accident just to keep us alive so the helicopter could get there. Once the helicopter landed, they put me in there and took me to Harris Methodist, where I underwent 2 surgeries for the trauma that I had just received, and then I started the healing process. So back to August 1st now, where I've woken up. So this is the Friday, and the accident happened on a Sunday. So as I'm putting all these pieces together, I start to realize how fortunate I am to be alive, and people kept telling me how lucky I was, and I just had this feeling that it was something more than that God had saved me from death that day on the road, especially when I looked at all of the things that just happened the way they did. So as I'm in my hospital room sorting through all of this, I start to get angry because I realized that God could have prevented this. If he saves me from death, why couldn't he just prevent the accident anyway? And I struggled a lot with that thought and that concept. And as I laid there broken and in pain and afraid, I started to get angry with God. Now, I had a lot of visitors and a lot of cards that people would send, or they'd come by and just check on me. And one day, this lady that I didn't know came in because she needed to see me. She told me that her name was Marcia, and that she had 4 small children, and the oldest of her children were battling leukemia at the time, and I knew how important this woman was to her family, just as any mom is, but also her family was going through a very difficult time. Then she told me that she was on the road with me that day as we were driving into Glenrose. She said that as we left Granbury, I was behind her, and I wasn't able to pass just because of oncoming traffic. She could tell that I wanted to pass, but I wasn't able to do that. Once we turned onto Highway 67 and started to head up the hill that this accident happened on, she said that I was able to get into the other lane and pass her, so that I got in front of her right before the other car came over the median and hit me. And she believes that I saved her life that day, and that's why she wanted to come see me in the hospital to make sure I was okay. And I realized in that moment how if her family had lost her that day, that would have been tragic for them. While it was difficult for me, I survived. And it was a moment where I got to say to myself, so many times we ask God why things happen. And in this moment, I was able to at least get a glimpse of something positive that happened out of something that was really negative. That Marcia is still able to be a mother to her family, that I'm still able to be here and share this story with everyone so that we can all know that God is always working. God is constantly looking out, more than just for us, but for everyone. And it's up to us to be faithful and be trusting. Thanks for listening.